My dear son, my dear daughter, it is Jesus who speaks with you at this moment. I know you are here because sleep won't come, because your mind won't rest, because your heart carries burdens that seem impossible to bear. I see your tears on the pillow. I know your whispered prayers in the early morning hours. I feel every beat of your heart that cries out for peace. You are not alone tonight. You never have been. Even when the silence seems deafening and darkness makes itself present, I am here, right beside you, waiting to wrap you in my infinite love. Today, I want to tell you a special story. A story that was born in the Father's heart even before the stars were created. It's the story of a light that never goes out, of a love that never fails, of a presence that never abandons. It's the story of how a simple star became the symbol of hope that dwells in every heart that seeks me. Close your eyes, my beloved. Breathe slowly, very slowly. Feel how your shoulders relax, how the tension melts away. Allow my voice to be like a balm for your wounded soul, like a lullaby that cradles not only your body, but also your weary spirit. This is not just a story to pass the time, but a journey of healing for your soul. Every word I'm going to share was chosen with care to touch the deepest parts of your being, to calm the anxiety that steals your rest, to heal the wounds that bleed in silence. While I speak, allow my presence to envelop you like a soft, warm blanket. Let my love heal every pain. Let my peace replace every worry. Tonight, you don't need to carry anything alone. Tonight, you can rest in my arms. So come, my precious treasure. Come with me on this journey through time, where you will discover that you were always loved, always cared for, always special in my eyes. And perhaps, at the end of this story, you will understand that the sleep you seek so much is not just rest for the body, but a trusting surrender to my love that never fails. Let me take you back in time, long before I was born in Bethlehem, when the world was plunged in a darkness different from what you know today. It was not only physical darkness, but spiritual darkness, a time when the hearts of men cried out for something they couldn't even name. I was in heaven, beside the Father, watching every tear that fell, hearing every prayer that rose like incense. I saw mothers lulling their children with songs of hope, even when they didn't know where relief would come from. I saw fathers working tirelessly, carrying on their shoulders not only the family's livelihood, but also the weight of a world that seemed to have lost its way. "It is time," said the Father, and I knew exactly what that meant. It was time to come down, to become one of you, to feel what you feel, to cry the tears that you cry. Not because I didn't understand you from where I was, but because you needed to know that I truly understand every nuance of human pain. The journey to earth began in a way few imagine. It wasn't just a physical descent, but an emptying of myself of all heavenly glory to fit into Mary's sacred womb. Imagine, my dear one, the creator of the universe choosing to become a small seed of life in the womb of a young peasant girl. Mary, my sweet earthly mother. When the angel Gabriel appeared to her, I could feel her heart racing, her hands trembling. She was so young, so pure, so full of simple dreams for her life. Marriage to Joseph, children, a quiet life in Nazareth. But when she said, "Let it be done unto me according to your word," all of heaven rejoiced. During those 9 months, while I grew inside her, I could feel every emotion she experienced. The morning sickness that left her weak, the judgmental looks from the townspeople, the worries about how Joseph would react. But I also felt her love growing each day, her whispered prayers, her hands caressing her belly with indescribable tenderness. Joseph, my earthly father, what an inner struggle he fought. When he discovered that Mary was pregnant, I saw his heart break. He loved her so much and couldn't understand. But then, on a night when he couldn't sleep, just like you now, I sent my angel to speak with him in dreams. Do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, said the angel, because what has been conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. What relief flooded Joseph's heart. What pure joy. He woke up with tears of happiness in his eyes, running to embrace Mary, asking forgiveness for having doubted, even if only in thought. And from that moment on, he loved me as if I were truly his biological son. The journey to Bethlehem was difficult. Mary, already at the end of her pregnancy, riding on a little donkey, stopping every hour because of contractions. Joseph, anxious, looking for a place for me to be born with dignity. But all doors closed. All the inns were full. When they finally arrived at that little stable, Mary didn't cry in despair. She smiled. Here is fine, she told Joseph. Here our boy will be born. And I knew, even before giving my first cry, that I had chosen the perfect family. The moment of my birth was magical in a way that words cannot describe. When I opened my eyes for the first time as a human baby, I saw Mary's face illuminated by a light that didn't come from the stable's lamps, but from heaven itself. It was as if all the stars had gathered to witness that moment, and it was then that something extraordinary happened in the sky. A star different from all others began to shine. It wasn't just another star in the vast universe, but a special star, created specifically to announce that hope had arrived on Earth. And while this special star began to shine brighter, its brilliance reached not only the shepherds in the nearby fields, but also distant hearts that had long waited for a sign that God had not forgotten them. That star that shone on the night of my birth was not like the others, my dear child. It carried within itself a divine mission, to be the beacon of hope for all hearts that felt lost in life's darkness. Just like you, who on this night seek peace for your restless soul. The shepherds were the first to see not only the star, but also the glory of the Lord that surrounded them. Imagine the scene: simple men, humble workers who spent nights caring for their sheep, suddenly enveloped by a heavenly light brighter than the midday sun. Their hearts raced with fright, their legs weakened. But then they heard the angel's words, "Fear not, for I bring you good tidings of great joy which shall be to all people." Do you know why I chose to appear first to the shepherds? Because they were like you, simple people, hard-working, who knew the weight of responsibilities and the loneliness of long nights. They understood what it means to watch while others sleep, to protect while others rest. They knew the value of good news in the midst of tiring routine. When the shepherds arrived at the stable, their faces still glowed with the reflection of angelic glory. Mary received them with a warm smile, and Joseph invited them to come closer. They knelt before the manger, and I could see in their eyes a mixture of reverence and tenderness that touched me deeply. One of the shepherds, the oldest of them, had tears streaming down his cheeks, marked by time. "All my life I have waited for this moment," he whispered. "Now I can die in peace." And I extended my small baby hand, lightly touching his rough finger. In that instant, a peace he had never experienced flooded his weary heart. But the star that shone over Bethlehem had an even greater purpose. Far away, in the east, wise men had been studying the heavens for decades, waiting for a sign prophesied. In ancient scriptures, they were magi, students of the stars, who had dedicated their entire lives to the search for truth. When they saw my star for the first time, they immediately knew it was different. It didn't follow the normal patterns of celestial movement. It seemed to have a life of its own, pulsing with a light that touched not only their eyes, but also their hearts. "The King of the Jews has been born," they said to one another. "We must go worship him." The Magi's journey was long and dangerous. Months of travel through arid deserts, facing sandstorms, bandits, and their own doubts that sometimes whispered in their minds, "What if we're wrong? What if it's just another star?" But whenever these doubts arose, they looked to the sky and saw my star shining even brighter, as if it were responding to their uncertainties with renewed hope. During the cold desert nights, when they camped under the starry canopy, I visited their dreams. Not as the baby I was physically, but as the eternal Lord I have always been. I spoke with each of them individually, strengthening their faith, healing their personal pains, preparing their hearts for the encounter that would change their lives. Forever Melchior, the richest of the three, carried not only gold in his luggage, but also a deep pain in his heart. He had lost his only son years before, and since then felt an emptiness that all the world's riches couldn't fill. In dreams, I showed him that his son was with me in heaven, happy and awaiting the day of reunion. "Your gold will be used to support my earthly family," I told him, "but your healed heart will be the true gift you will offer me." Gaspar, the youngest, brought incense, symbol of prayer and worship. He had been raised in luxury, but his soul yearned for something deeper than all the empty religious ceremonies he had known. I revealed to him in dreams that true worship is not in elaborate rituals, but in the sincerity of the heart that surrenders completely to divine love. Balthasar, the wisest and most experienced, carried myrrh, a bitter spice used in embalming. He had the gift of prophecy, and somehow his spirit sensed that my journey on earth would include suffering. In his dreams, I showed him that yes, there would be a cross, but also a glorious resurrection. "Your myrrh represents not only my future death," I explained to him, "but also the death of all pain and separation for those who believe in me." As they approached Jerusalem, the stars seemed to dance in the sky, moving in a way that defied all the laws of astronomy they knew. It was as if it had its own personality, guiding them with divine intelligence, stopping when they needed to rest, speeding up when it was time to proceed. When they finally arrived in Bethlehem, the star stopped exactly over the house where my family had settled after my birth. The light it emanated was so intense that it illuminated the entire small town as if it were broad daylight. The residents came out of their houses, pointing to the sky in amazement, whispering among themselves about the meaning of that extraordinary phenomenon. And so, while that special star fulfilled its divine mission of guiding sincere hearts to the source of hope, it also planted an eternal seed. The certainty that God always provides a light for those who seek him with sincerity. When the Magi finally arrived at the small house in Bethlehem, their hearts beat with a mixture of expectation and reverence they had never experienced. The star had stopped right above the simple dwelling, radiating a soft, golden light that seemed to embrace the entire structure with divine tenderness. Mary opened the door, and the moment her eyes met those of the visitors, she knew they had traveled much more than just miles of distance. They had crossed a spiritual journey that had completely transformed them. "Come in," she said with that smile that always warmed hearts. "You are welcome." I was in my mother's arms, no longer the newborn from the manger, but a child of about 2 years, with curious eyes and a smile that made even the most serious adults melt. When the Magi saw me, something extraordinary happened. These cultured men, accustomed to the reverence of kings and emperors, prostrated themselves on the dirt floor as if they were before the greatest treasure of all time. "You don't need to kneel," Mary said gently. But Melchior raised his moist eyes and replied, "Our Lady, we have traveled months for this moment. Let us worship as our hearts ask us to." And I, even being just a small child, extended my little hands to them, touching their heads in a sign of blessing. What happened next was one of the most touching moments of my entire earthly childhood. Each magus presented his gift, but along with each offering, he also shared his personal story, his struggles, his most intimate pains. Melchior opened his chest of gold, but before offering it, he spoke about the loss of his son. "This gold," he said with a choked voice, "is all I have left from a lifetime of work. But after losing my boy, I realized that all the world's riches are worth nothing if we don't have love to share." I freed myself from Mary's arms and walked to him, placing my small hand on his cheek, wet with tears. In that instant, a warm light enveloped his heart, and he knew, without a shadow of doubt, that his son was well and that they would meet again. One day, Gaspar offered his incense, but his words revealed a thirsty soul. "All my life I have participated in empty religious ceremonies, offered mechanical prayers, fulfilled rituals out of obligation. But when I saw your star, I understood that there is a worship that is born from the transformed heart, not from human traditions." I smiled at him and clapped my little hands, and in that simple gesture of a child, he found the genuine joy he had sought in temples and altars for decades. Balthasar presented his myrrh with trembling hands. "I have the gift of seeing beyond the present," he confessed, "and I see shadows in your future, little king. I see pain, I see sacrifice. This myrrh represents my prayer that when that time comes, you will find strength to fulfill your mission." I looked at him with that seriousness that sometimes surprised adults in such a small child, and nodded slightly, as if I understood his prophetic words perfectly. But the physical gifts were just symbols. The real gift was what happened in the following days. The Magi stayed in Bethlehem for a week, and I was able to play with them, hear their stories, learn about the distant cultures they came from. They taught me words in their languages, showed me star maps, told me legends of their peoples. Night. When I finally fell asleep in Mary's arms, the Magi sat with Joseph around a small fire, sharing not only accounts of their travels, but also their reflections on life, purpose, the search for meaning. Joseph, with his simple carpenter's wisdom, offered insights that often surprised those erudite men. "You looked for a star in the sky," Joseph said one night, "but you found a much greater light here on earth. It's not about what we know or what we possess, but about how we love and how we allow ourselves to be loved." Melchior nodded deeply. "Now I understand why God chose a simple family like you. True greatness is not in wealth or knowledge, but in purity of heart." During that week, something miraculous happened with each of the Magi. Melchior, who had arrived carrying the pain of loss, began to smile again. He played with me in the yard, lifted me in the air, laughed at my attempts to repeat words in his language. "You gave me back the joy of living," he whispered to Mary. "Your son healed a wound I thought was incurable." Gaspar discovered an authentic spirituality that completely transformed his way of relating to the divine. He spent hours watching Mary in prayer, noticing how she spoke with God not as a distant and fearful being, but as a loving father. "She taught me that prayer is not performance," he confided to Joseph, "but intimate conversation with the one who loves us unconditionally." Balthasar, with his prophetic gift, had visions during that week that showed him not only my future suffering, but also the glory that would come after. "I came here worried about the shadows I saw," he said on the last night, "but now I see that even darkness is part of a luminous plan that my limited mind cannot completely understand." When the time for farewell came, it was difficult for everyone. I cried when they began to prepare their luggage, and they also shed tears. But they weren't tears of sadness, but of gratitude. Gratitude for having been chosen to live that historic moment, for having their lives transformed by the encounter with me. On the night before departure, they had the same dream. An angel told them to return by another way, not passing through Jerusalem, where Herod awaited news about my location. But the angel also gave them a promise. "You are not saying goodbye forever. One day, you will meet this boy again, but then he will be recognized as king, not only by the wise, but by all creation." And so, while the Magi departed, carrying in their hearts much more than they brought in their luggage, the star that had guided them continued shining, now with an even deeper meaning. It had become a symbol of the transformation that happens in every heart that truly finds divine love. My dear son, my dear daughter, now I need to tell you about the most important star of all. Not the one that shone in Bethlehem's sky, but the one I lit inside your own heart the moment you were created. Yes, long before you were born, long before your first tears or your first smile. I had already placed an eternal light within you. This inner star is different from any light you have ever seen. It cannot be extinguished by the pain you carry. It cannot be diminished by the disappointments you have faced. It cannot be obscured by the sleepless nights you have been living. Even when you can't feel it shining, it's there, pulsing to the rhythm of my love for you. I remember when you were a child and woke up in the middle of the night with nightmares. Your parents would turn on a light in the room, and immediately the fear would melt away. It wasn't just the physical light that calmed you, but the certainty that you weren't alone. The star that shines within you works the same way, my precious treasure. It is the constant certainty that I have never abandoned you, not for a second. During all these years you have lived, I have watched every moment of your journey. I saw when you took your first steps, stumbling and getting up with determination. I saw when you learned to read and discovered new worlds between book pages. I saw when you fell in love for the first time and when your heart was broken. In each of these moments, the star within you shone differently, reflecting the emotions you experienced. But it was in the most difficult moments that this star proved most necessary. When you lost that dear person and thought you would never be happy again, the star within you whispered hope even when your ears couldn't hear. When you faced that betrayal that broke your trust in others, the star radiated self-love to remind you that not everyone is like that. When you felt like a failure and useless, the star shone with the truth of your priceless value in my eyes. Do you know why I allowed you to go through all these difficult experiences? Not because I wanted to see you suffer, never that, but because each challenge you overcame strengthened the light of the star within you, like a diamond that only reveals its true beauty after being cut. Your soul has become brighter through each trial you faced with faith. The insomnia that brought you here tonight is not your enemy, though it seems to be. It is actually an invitation from your inner star for you to stop, breathe, and reconnect with me. During the day, you are so busy fulfilling responsibilities, solving problems, caring for others, that you barely have time to listen to what your soul is trying to tell you. But in the quiet of night, when the world sleeps, your inner star can finally speak louder. Every sleepless night you have spent is a disguised opportunity. An opportunity to meet me more intimately, to heal wounds that have been open for years, to receive the answers your heart has been seeking. I know you would rather be sleeping, resting peacefully, but sometimes I need special moments with you. Moments when you're not distracted by the day's demands. In these silent nights, I have whispered important things to your heart. I have already told you how much you are loved, how much your life has purpose, how much I am proud of the person you have become despite all adversities. I have already revealed dreams I will still fulfill in your life, people I will still place in your path, joys I will still pour over you like refreshing rain, the anxiety that has been stealing. Your sleep is like a cloud that passes in front of the moon. The moon continues shining even when we can't see it completely. In the same way, the star within you continues radiating peace even when anxiety tries to obscure it. You just need to learn to look beyond the temporary cloud and fix your eyes on the eternal light that never fails. When you worry about the future, remember that I am already there, preparing every detail of your tomorrow. When you regret past mistakes, remember that I have already transformed them into wisdom and experience that strengthened you. When you feel overwhelmed with the present, remember that I am here now, at this exact moment, sharing every burden you carry. The star that shines within you has a specific frequency, a unique vibration that resonates with my heart. When you pray, when you meditate on my word, when you simply whisper my name in the darkness of your room, this star pulses stronger, creating a direct connection between your soul and my presence. That's why you sometimes feel that inexplicable peace that invades your being during prayer. It's your inner star dancing in harmony with my love. This same star is what will allow you to sleep peacefully after our conversation. It won't just be physical tiredness that leads you to sleep, but the deep certainty that you are safe in my arms, that all your worries are in my hands, that the love I feel for you is greater than any problem you might face. And so, while awareness of this inner star became clearer, a new understanding began to be born. We are not just people in search of light, but bearers of divine light itself, called to radiate hope in a world that desperately needs brightness. Now that you've discovered the star that shines within you, I need to extend a special invitation to you, my beloved child. It's not enough to simply receive light. You were created to be light as well. Yes, you yourself, with all your imperfections, with all your wounds still in the process of healing, with all your doubts and fears, you have been chosen to be a star that illuminates the path for others. Perhaps you're thinking, but Jesus, how can I be light for others when I'm still searching for light myself? How can I help someone when I still need so much help? This is exactly the beauty of my plan, my dear one. It's not despite your wounds that you can help others, but precisely because of them. Remember when you were a child and fell, scraping your knee. Who was better at comforting you than someone who had also fallen and knew exactly how it hurt? Who was better at teaching you to get back up than someone who had stumbled and learned not to give up? Your scars aren't marks of failure, but medals of courage that qualify you to be a healer of other wounded souls. Every sleepless night you've lived through has taught you compassion for others who also struggle with anxiety. Every tear you've shed has given you the sensitivity needed to wipe away the tears of those who cry alone. Every time you felt lost and found me again, you learned the path that you can teach to other lost travelers. I'll tell you a secret. Many times, I heal one person through another person. I use your words of encouragement to bring hope to a discouraged heart. I use your genuine smile to brighten someone who hasn't found reasons to smile in a long time. I use your friendly presence to make lonely people feel loved and valued. You've already done this without even realizing it. Remember that time you stopped to talk with that person who seemed sad. In that moment, you were my star for them. Remember when you offered help even while going through your own difficulties. You were my light shining through your actions. Remember when you listened to someone with patience, without judging, just being present. You were my ears and my heart, for someone who needed to be heard. The star you carry within yourself wasn't made just to illuminate you, but to create a network of light that connects all my children. When you shine, you inspire others to shine as well. When you choose to love despite the pain, you teach others that it's possible to be gentle even in the midst of storms. When you forgive even after being hurt, you show the world that healing is possible and that the cycle of resentment can be broken. You don't need to be perfect to be used by me. In fact, I prefer to work through people who know their limitations, because they depend more on me and less on themselves. When you feel weak, my strength manifests through you more clearly. When you feel inadequate, my grace shines more intensely through your imperfect but sincere actions. Think about the people who have impacted your life the most. They probably weren't those who seemed to have everything figured out, but those who, even with their own struggles, chose to love you, support you, encourage you. They were people who knew what it was to suffer and, for that very reason, had genuine compassion for your pain. They were stars that shone not because they didn't know darkness, but because they chose to be light. Even when darkness threatened to consume everything around them, there are people in your life right now who need the light you carry. Maybe it's someone in your family going through a difficult time. Maybe it's a coworker who smiles during the day but cries when they get home. Maybe it's an elderly neighbor who feels forgotten by the world. Maybe it's even a stranger you'll meet in the grocery store line or on public transportation. You don't need to make speeches or preach sermons. Sometimes, being light is simply being genuinely yourself, with all your humanity. It's looking into people's eyes when you speak with them. It's asking, "How are you?" and actually waiting for the answer. It's offering your presence when someone just needs someone who cares. Remember Mary, my earthly mother. She didn't have an easy life. She faced judgment, had to flee to Egypt when I was a baby, lived through the pain of seeing me suffer on the cross. But she never let these difficulties extinguish the light she carried within herself. Until the end of her life, she was a source of consolation and wisdom for the early Christians. She understood that her pains could become bridges of understanding for other mothers who also suffered. Joseph, my earthly father, is also a wonderful example. He could have rebelled when he discovered that Mary was pregnant. He could have become bitter when he had to abandon his plans and flee to Egypt. He could have felt diminished for not being my biological father, but he chose to be light through his loving obedience, his faithful care, his constant presence. He taught me that being a father isn't just about generating life, but about loving, protecting, guiding, and being present. You have this same choice every day. You can allow your difficulties to make you give up shining, or you can decide that they will become fuel for an even more intense light. Every time you choose the second option, you not only illuminate your own path, but also open a trail of hope for those who come behind. Sometimes you'll be a quiet star, almost imperceptible, but essential, like those stars that don't shine as brightly as others, but serve as reference points for lost navigators. Other times, you'll be a shooting star, passing quickly through someone's life, but leaving an indelible mark that there is beauty and hope in the world. What's important is that you understand you were called to this mission not by chance, but by divine design. I need you exactly where you are, being exactly who you are, facing exactly the challenges you face. There's no mistake or coincidence in your story. Every chapter of your life, including the most painful ones, is being used to prepare you to be the light that someone needs to find. And so, as the understanding of this divine calling to be light began to settle, a new natural question arose: how to keep this light shining constantly, especially during life's most challenging moments. My dear child, now I'm going to teach you the secret of keeping your inner star always shining, even when life's winds threaten to extinguish it. Because there's no point in discovering that you are light if you don't know how to keep that light burning during the most difficult moments. The star within you is like a sacred flame that needs to be constantly fed, not with oil or common fuel, but with the spiritual elements that I myself provide freely to all my children: intimate prayer, meditation on my word, genuine gratitude, liberating forgiveness, and above all, loving communion with me. Prayer doesn't need to be elaborate or formal. In fact, the prayers that warm my heart the most are those simple, honest conversations you have with me throughout the day. When you're driving and whisper, "Jesus, help me have patience in traffic," I listen. When you're cooking and give thanks for the food you have, I smile. When you're feeling lonely and simply say, "I know you're here," my presence becomes more tangible around you. Meditation on my word is like adding wood to the fire of your faith. Every verse you read attentively, every promise of mine that you allow to penetrate your heart, every biblical story you ponder, all of this feeds the flame of your hope. You don't need to read entire chapters at once. Sometimes, a single verse meditated on throughout the entire day can completely transform your perspective. Gratitude is one of the most powerful fuels for your inner star. When you stop to recognize the blessings you've already received, however small they may seem, you're declaring that you trust me even when you can't see the complete picture. Gratitude isn't denying the pain you feel, but recognizing that there are still reasons for hope in the midst of difficulty. Forgiving others and forgiving yourself is like cleaning the glass of the lantern. When there's accumulated resentment, hurt, or guilt, the light of your inner star becomes obscured, even though it continues to shine. Forgiving isn't forgetting or pretending there was no pain, but choosing to free your heart from the weight that prevents you from soaring. But of all the elements that feed your inner flame, the most important is intimate communion with me. This happens in these quiet moments, like right now, when you stop everything and simply allow me to speak to your heart. When you close your eyes and feel my presence. When you breathe deeply and remember that you are deeply loved. When you surrender your worries and trust that I take care of everything. I want you to imagine your inner star right now. See how it glows softly within your chest, radiating warmth and peace. Feel how this light spreads throughout your entire body, healing areas of tension, calming anxious thoughts, bringing a sense of completeness and belonging. This light you feel isn't imagination, my beloved. It's real, it's powerful, and it's yours forever. In the coming days, when anxiety tries to return, remember this star. When insomnia threatens to steal your rest, turn your attention to this inner light. When you feel lost or discouraged, allow this flame to guide you back to peace. I promise you that if you feed this flame every day, even if it's just for a few minutes, It will grow until it becomes a beacon so bright that other people will naturally be drawn to the hope you carry. You will become a reference point for lost souls, an oasis of peace in the midst of the world's chaos. And now, my precious treasure, as your head begins to feel heavy and your eyes begin to close, I want you to feel how your entire body is relaxing. Feel how the tension is melting away, how peace is taking over every muscle, every thought, every worry. You are safe, you are loved, you have purpose. And now you can rest deeply, knowing that I am taking care of everything while you sleep. Your inner star will continue shining even during sleep, radiating peace and healing throughout your entire being. And so, with the awareness of carrying an eternal light and the knowledge of how to keep it burning, the heart finally found the peace necessary for restorative rest. Knowing that divine love is an eternal shelter where one can always find refuge. My dear son, my dear daughter, our journey tonight is coming to an end, but it's actually just the beginning of a new way of living. You've discovered that you are more than you imagined. You are a bearer of a divine star, called to be light in the world, loved unconditionally by me since always. When you wake up tomorrow, everything will seem the same ceiling, the same walls, the same commitments waiting for you. But something fundamental has changed. You are no longer the same person who lay down tonight carrying anxieties and fears. You now know that there is an eternal light shining within you, a loving presence that never abandons you, and a divine purpose weaving every thread of your story. Take this truth with you. You are precious in my eyes. You have inestimable value, and your life matters much more than you imagine. In the days to come, when difficulties try to make you forget this special night, remember the star that shines in your chest. It is your compass, your comfort, your source of renewed hope. Sleep now in peace, my beloved. Sleep knowing that I am here, watching over you, healing your wounds while you rest, preparing blessings for your tomorrow. Your soul is healed, your anxiety has been replaced by peace, and your heart has found the rest it was searching for. Good night, my precious star, until we meet again in the gardens of your sweetest dreams.